Welcome to Landria Onkka on YouTube, here to help you break through those fears, live an awesome life, and I'm going to supply the tools for you to manifest anything. All right, we're going to talk about past lives, and if you have been here before, my guess is yes, and if you recognize them. Now, we have a tendency to not talk about this to other people because they may not believe what we do and it's not acceptable. The majority of the planet is a cluster F, right? Okay, let's just be honest here. We came here to change that. So unfortunately, if we were the majority, the positive, the change makers, I call us. If you were a change maker and it was the majority of people here, we wouldn't have to come here because the planet would be in a higher frequency. Abundance would flow, criticism would stop, judgment, all this stuff. All right, somebody said, if you could do all this stuff, you would manifest a lottery win. First of all, I win the lottery a lot, okay? My second question to you is, what makes you think that what you want is what I want? I live an amazing life that people dream of. All right? I was an investment banker. I was on private jets with famous people, wealthy people. That is not my idea of quality life. Quality life for me is having true purpose, having the things that I desire, because wealth and lottery and all that stuff, which I've had, the 8,200 square foot home, 7 bedrooms, 7.5 baths, swim up pool bar, was not happiness. All right? You can have that and be happy and awaken. But that is not what makes you happy. Those things are not at the root of joy. I know that what I need and desire is much simpler now because I don't require the world to make me happy. So therefore, I don't have those goals. Now, I want you to remember that you will evolve as you go through your lives and your different existence here. You evolve and you'll come to that conclusion. So don't impose what you believe and think and desire on somebody else and what you believe is success. We're all allowed our individual choices, our own realities. We're allowed that. Can we be okay with each other's? And then come to my channel if you like my teachings. If not, you know what? There's thousands of other channels out there. I'm here to tell you, I want to see you happy and succeed. That's what I desire. If my teachings aren't it for you, I'll bless you. Find what works for you. It's not about what I desire or what you desire. It's about we're all here on a major mission. I want to remind you of something right now. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. What we are right now in this form and whatever we're feeling and thinking, how we're living out our lives, is the culmination of all the things we've created in the past and all of our choices, because you've always had choice along the way. So if you think you don't have choice here, part of what you may have decided before you came here is to follow through with certain things. So you may have to stay here. In other words, some people, they get in accidents, right? And they have to come back and they're not allowed to go over to the other side. And, somebody says, it's not your time, and they have to come back here, right? It's because they really did make the decision to stay here and follow through with certain things. So whatever you're feeling and thinking now is the culmination of all of the things you've been in the past. But not all of them have been human forms. We have trillions and trillions, endless, galaxies and universes. All right? There's no end to anything. Any form, there's no such thing as time. Everything exists that you could possibly imagine and beyond, because our little pea brains can't comprehend this stuff, right? All right, let's talk about this. So we want to get to the point where we're evolved, and that's the whole purpose of us keep coming back. If you had one shot at this, well, I think we'd all go to hell in a handbasket, right? The whole planet would. Of course we have different choices, and you've probably read about some of these things, and even if you're told reincarnation is bad or it's not real, and of course somebody else told you that because you didn't come up with that by yourself, right? That limitation. Well, then that's okay. Just roll with me and keep an open mind, because what I'm thinking, well, what I know that most people are thinking is, there might be something else, because, you're seeing stories, or there's a lot of people that have remembered their past lives. How many times have you seen these little kids who talk about who they were in their past lives as if it's no big deal? And then we start to forget later on. Why? Because we're here to evolve, and if we had all this information about what we really were, this unlimited powerful beings, we'd probably sit around and eat bonbons, because we're like, this is not real. I don't really have to do anything because I'm super powerful anyways, and I don't have to go through all this suffering and struggle because it's not real. It really isn't. But it is the role. It is what we came here to play. So let's do our best. Let's put on an awesome performance, right? A standing ovation. And that's what you're here to do, ultimately. What have you remembered from your past? Because we're going to forget what your friends or family might think or believe. Let's talk about you. Do you have memories of past lives? I have several. So how do you identify if it's just some crazy dream? There's no such thing as crazy. But something that's out there, that's an accumulation of things, or if it's an actual past life. Well, number one, if you have reoccurring dreams and memories or feelings about a specific role you played. In other words, do you visit a certain city frequently, or throughout your life you have reoccurring dreams in a city you've never been in, and it's always the same city, and you could sit and draw it on a map, right? Did you look different there? Was it a different time period? Did you have a certain role and you knew what you were, and it's nothing that you do here? All right? All right, so I'll give you a few examples of mine. I took French in school, in high school, and in college, and pretty much flunked. And I'm a really great student, but that was not a class I did well in. I could not resonate with the French language. I really wanted to learn it because it's a beautiful language. But ironically, I taught myself German and was able to not only speak the language easily, I used to speak German in my sleep, never took any lessons, and then went back to the University of Michigan to try and qualify for classes, and I was on the same level as 8-year students. I really resonated with the German language, which is very difficult, and I actually got a scholarship and worked overseas. And I went to a university there. What was that? There may be certain things, certain countries that you resonate with. Maybe a language came easily to you. You really connect to it. You don't know why. You don't have to know why or have these reasons, but there will be things that you'll sort of connect to. Are you dressing in a certain... I have a friend who dresses Victorian, pretty much. Very, very different kind of dressing, and the way she wears her hair and everything. And she looks like somebody who really connects to that time period. And I'm convinced that she probably lived in it at one point. Are there certain traits and things that you gravitate toward that are really don't make any sense, or there's no real reason for it here? It's not like you were brought up to dress a certain way or brought up to learn a certain language. Those are huge indicators, because we do carry that energy forward. We never lose that knowledge or those skills. But because we're playing a new role, we get to start from fresh again. All right, so I was a live-in, I guess, nanny, you would say, teacher. I lived with, now remember, you can do research on some of this stuff and find out that what seems like so weird in the dream, you'll find out actually makes perfect sense if you look up historical facts. Now, this is one of the ones I looked up. I lived during the American Revolution, the British and the Americans, when that whole war started to break out, that revolt started to break out, I lived in the United States on the East Coast, and I was a live-in teacher with a German family, a little boy and a girl, and a couple, very nice people from Germany, and he was in the military, German military, but he was living there. We lived in a very small village of which I can draw details. I remember wanting to leave because I was in my 20s and I thought I was ancient and I was single, you know, old school mom kind of thing. And I realized that if my life was going to change, I needed to leave. And I didn't have the guts to say goodbye to them or, you know, quit. So I tried to get away one night and I decided I was just going to pack up and leave. And unfortunately, on my way to the next village, somebody, a man like a soldier, American, came up to me on a horse and said that I had to turn around and go back because the British had invaded or broke out a battle with the Americans in the next town, which is where I was going. He thus pulled me up on his horse and rode me back to the house. That was it. All right. That's a very detailed dream. You may have dreams like this that you're thinking, that is way too detailed. Now here's the deal. I, of course, spoke English and German. I don't know. I must have come from Germany, but I spoke English. So I was teaching these kids English, but I spoke German, and that's why I was living in the house with them, because he was in the German military. So I looked it up. Why is a German military guy family living there? And it made no sense. Actually, it did. I looked this up, and there was a lot of German military officers and people from other countries living here in the United States, okay? And the German military officers was a very big part of that, and of course was supporting the Americans. All right, I can even tell you the uniform he wore, because he did wear a uniform. All right, so another life. Now this is the one I've heard a lot from you, and you are very petrified, those of you who can relate to what I'm about to talk about, petrified to tell other people about this one, and that is life on other planets. I have had a very strong, powerful recollection for many, many years of living on another planet. I was sort of like the French underground there, and the planet was peaceful, but there were battles going on with other factions up in the sky, frequently battling over the planet. The inhabitants of the planet itself were very peaceful people, and that was part of the challenges that they were fighting back. They were sort of, you know, in the middle of this battle of these different, aliens. I don't like to use the word aliens, different life forms that were trying, some in our favor and others that were just trying to take over because they wanted possession of the planet. The planet was fairly flat, had a lot of desert type areas, and had other areas that had huge bodies of water where we actually had little kind of islands that you could get to with very well developed cities. I can draw this to a T. I can draw the different areas that I lived in, and I also have details of how part of these groups that I was helping protect some of the people. I was feeding them. They would come to the house and I would feed them, and a group came in, and I won't give you all the details because I don't want to take up 45 minutes of your time here. They got me out of there and faked my deaths and got me out of the city because I was going to be taken out because I was helping way too much to protect the people of the planet. And so I did make it to the next city. I had to go by foot, and it was very detailed. And I can draw the next city. It was like a safe zone. I don't know why it was, but it was a place that I could go to, and I was taken care of there. This is so detailed And I remember the details of the war. I can remember seeing at night, seeing flashes in the distance of battles going on, and people constantly evacuating different cities, and just walking to the next place. Just massive amounts of people just walking, and coming to the next place where they were sheltered, and which was possible because it was a peaceful, fairly peaceful planet where we would help each other. And so they go to the next place where people would feed each other, but there was this other thing going on. So the planet ultimately was destroyed. Gosh, I've got so many. I remember being very young, like a teenager, and being pregnant with another very young mother, and we had been captured by American Indians who pretty much slaughtered everybody, was holding us captive, not in a tent, but in a little tiny building that I think was American and had bunk beds. And a higher up, he wasn't the chief, but he was up there, who did not speak English, who would bring food into us. I think because we were pregnant, that they didn't kill us. And he and I bonded, even though we couldn't speak. And at one point, he let us go, and wasn't supposed to do that, but he let us go. And he gave me a gorgeous necklace that he had around his neck. He was older. He was probably older. I was a teenager. He was probably in his 40s, late 40s. I can remember the details of this. Now, that's a very odd memory. I remember being a young male in a war. I was a medic on a plane. That one I've have a lot of details for years and years and years, until I finally had the final dream of how I died. And I have not had the dream since. I was never carrying a weapon because I found out later on, when you're in the medical field, you don't carry weapons. That's the whole point. You're not part of the war, although we were getting shot at all the time. We would fly in planes and pick up people in these big fuselages. And ultimately, the joke is I died on a passenger ferry that got hit and started to slowly sink, helped everybody get off, but then it got boarded and burnt by the forces that were coming in. They actually got on the boat. I was still on the boat with another off-duty officer, and both of us got killed. They splashed the whole thing with fuel and lit it. But that's not how I died. I think I got strangled. I think they just did this to me. I didn't have a weapon on me. At the moment, just before I died, there was peace that came over me. I had a severe panic, and then when I realized this is it, I'm going to go. This is how ironic. I'm going to die on a ferry, not in the middle of combat, saving lives. And I went into this totally euphoric state of peace. That was my last dream. Because every single time I'd have that dream of the battles and the things that we went through, and then being on the ferry would be slowly sinking, and I helped evacuate everybody because I was in the military. But I never would see past that point, and I finally had that final dream. And then when I went in that state of euphoria, I was allowed to release it. Do you have certain scars on your body? And by the way, we look very similar in our lifetimes. We will, if you had a picture of who you knew you were, you'd probably look very much like that person. And even if you were male or female, depending on who you were. I think that's my big ones. That's the ones I remember the most. The big one for me is the military one, but those stopped just a couple of years ago. And the ones on another planet, I continually have those because I have a lot of dreams of being under attack by, craft in the sky. They were always battling up in the sky. They weren't on the ground. Although occasionally they did, but not most of the time. They were battling each other ahead, and we'd all had to take cover. It was a normal thing. Here they come, and you'd see it going on, and then you'd have to take cover. So You could do a past life regression. You know, I'm actually a quantum healing hypnosis technique hypnotist. You know, Dolores Cannon's training system. And I have done this with other people. It's pretty fascinating. Sometimes it helps you to release some of the issues that you have in your life now. It's not necessary, but sometimes it can help people, especially to heal. You may have some chronic thing that makes no sense, that may be a past life. Most of the you know, problems that people have, medical problems, are from this lifetime of them internalizing things that go on now. So you might have something that came forward that, you know, is just chronic. Go get the past life regression if that's what you want to do. If you believe that you are on another planet, why is that such a big deal? I don't know why everybody thinks that's so weird. You know, big whoop. By the way, we looked like human beings, very much like ourselves. There were just different things on the planet that were different to Earth, although it looked very similar. You know, the big bodies of water and then like the very flat areas. But there were buildings and, you know, there was aircraft, you know, in the sky, not like airplanes, more like, you know, alien spacecraft kind of things. I find this exciting and fun because I think it just is us getting to recreate ourselves and go off and do some new story. It's like going into a library and picking out a new book, a new adventure that you want to partake in. And there's always something at the end that's amazing if you get to, you know, if you choose it. But there's nothing exciting. We wouldn't watch movies if there wasn't some kind of a crisis or, you know, a peak in the movie. If you know me, you know that I wrote a book called The Rooftop Christmas Tree, which was made into a television movie. There's always a crisis point, and then there's something revealed or something happens that is, you know, just going to be amazing. If you haven't read my book, before you see the movie, The Rooftop Christmas Tree, I suggest you read my book because it is different than the movie. They made some changes because they have time limits, and you can buy that on Amazon. You can look me up and, you know, look at my publications and all this other stuff. We bring those talents forward. So, you know, I have pretty much been a teacher or a healer of some kind, or a warrior of some kind throughout my past lives. You know, I always remember I was either doing something to help other people or teaching other people or trying to, you know, help save them from situations and putting myself on the line. So that's why I say I'm a Zen powerhouse, right? You will notice that some of the dreams that you have just have patterns, and you may have a gut feeling of what you were in your past life. Pay attention to your dreams. They're really powerful. And what you can do is before you go to sleep, you can ask for answers and actually go in, because a lot of those dreams that you have are just you going off into the collective and interacting with other people. They're not always past lives. In fact, most of them probably are not. But that's you in the collective. So your soul does not go to sleep. Your body does. So you just go off into the collective because you have no limits. You know, you don't have all this thinking going on of what you can and can't do. You go in the collective, so you're interacting with, you know, your ex-husband or, you know, your dead relatives or whatever, and that's all. This is real. And sometimes you're working things out, but it's still part of the collective energy. So you may be working stuff out and creating scenarios and stuff. Don't be afraid of that. So if something happens over there that's not so nice, it could be these are messages for you to change things. You know, those are messages about how you're feeling and thinking, or what, you know, what's bothering you. So it's not always a past life or something that's going to come true or whatever. So just pay attention. This is all really powerful stuff. Those past lives, if you really feel you have one, pay attention to that and ask yourself what you brought forward into this life where you can elevate that and correct some things, make it so, you know, get past the fears, make it so that you're going up to this next level, because you want to come back on the higher level frequencies, right? I chose a less traumatic life this time. I chose really nice parents and a Midwestern upbringing and just this amazing life that I've always had and manifested and continue to manifest. And so, you know, I took a break because I've always been somebody who's been in the middle of a lot of wars and trauma and helping other people in some very stressful situations. And now I'm doing it with you in a more relaxed way, all right? You can choose that if you want. But if you did choose a life this time to take on some big challenges, go through with it. Master it. You know, this is your story. There's a really happy ending here. But you have to master this. And instead of cowering in the corner saying this doesn't happen or it's, you know, it's not my fault or you're a victim, you get to create this story in this lifetime. Make it amazing. Right? It's like you want to get to the end and go, oh man, this was so great. Like I really went for it, you know, and I broke through my fears instead of cowering back and saying, you know, I'm afraid to change or I'm afraid to do this or that. Go after your life now. Don't wait. And share your past life stories because a lot of you have, and they're pretty cool because it's amazing how sometimes people have stories that match. Or you have a story, then you look up history and you find out, wow, that was right on. You're whole and perfect, strong and powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. I hope you enjoyed my stories. You know, a few years ago, I would never have talked about that because that's not something I would want to just share with everybody. And now, yeah, I just really don't care, right? I know what's true for me, and you get to choose what's true for you too. Thank you. Blessings. Namaste.